Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Yes,
hear
sir.
you.
Yeah, just a minute. So is the screen visible? Hello?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yeah. So go ahead and do the first question. I want you to create a class named account. Okay. So when a person opens an account, you need to supply an ID. I mean, we won't be storing the names. We will store the ID for a person. And then a person can update his account. Basically, he can credit or debit. So if you want, you can create separate functions, one for credit, one for debit, or a single function. And you should handle insufficient balance. Let's say a person has 10 rupees and he wants to debit 100 rupees. You should not allow that, but your program should not crash at that point. Okay, it should maybe output that, okay, you have insufficient balance, but you should be able to do the next transaction as well. At the end, you should maintain how much balance a person has and a string representation of your uh, class, basically, so that when I print the object, it should give me maybe something like this. Any questions? Yeah. Okay, so let's take, I think, 15. It should take 5 or 10 minutes, but let's take 15 minutes and then we'll see. Is anyone done? Okay, any confusions? I see Siddharth asking, can you explain again? Does anyone else have a confusion? Okay, let me explain once more. You have studied classes, right? In this week's lectures, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I want you to create a class named account, okay? So we can create multiple accounts. That is the goal of a class. A class can have multiple objects. So let's say we want John to create an account. So we'll say, okay, create an account and we supply an ID, which the account will store, that object will store. Then we only need to create one method. A method is basically a function inside a class. So it should update John's balance. If it's positive, it will increase that. If it is negative, it will decrease that. Simple as that. Now, it should not basically decrement beyond John's balance. So let's say John's balance is 10 and I want to decrement by 20. So that would take his balance to minus 10, which is not possible because uh, we're not playing with integers, it's money. So we are only supposed to get positive numbers. So in case we find that the update, basically balance minus whatever we are doing here, is negative, we should not go ahead with the transaction and we should prompt the user that this is an invalid transaction. But what we want is that our program should not exit here. Let's say he gave three transactions, plus 100, minus 150, minus 50. Ignore this transaction and go ahead. So is everything clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So once we have these three things, all we want to do is, okay, now what is the final balance? Are we keeping the correct count? That when we update, are we updating John's balance accordingly? Finally, what we want is in Python, we can print the entire class as well. Now it is up to the developer. What does he want to print when someone says print and John? You must have studied that underscore underscore string function. Let's say somebody does let's say print John. In reality, what's being done is print John dot str underscore underscore. So this is an inbuilt function for every class. You can define this function like this. Let's say John, you have underscore underscore this Excel, and you have to return, let's say in this case, ID and self.id and so on. This will go to print and print will print that. So can you do it now? Should be very simple. ID, update, balance, string. Four things. So that is it clear? You were confused about this. Okay, okay. So take 5 more minutes. Let's see if you can. I mean, this should be easy. Okay, how many are done?
I have done, sir.
Yeah, can you raise your hands? Two people are done. Okay. Let's do it together. Is the font okay?
Yes, sir.
So we want to create a class by the name account. There will be a constructor first in it. So
Hello, Subbaragir. Yeah, भैया. Movement में call.
yeah, so I was saying we have a constructor and
Yeah, definitely integer pass. ये बाबू मैं क्लास में आता हूँ ले रहा हूँ. Video.
Muted.
yeah, so we have a constructor and whenever we create an object, we want to supply an ID. So we'll say ID and we don't supply any default values. So we say self.id is equal to ID. And then we want to create a method by the name update. So we have define update and it takes an amount. Okay. So we take an amount and what we want to do is we want to update a person's balance. So whenever a person opens an account, by default, his balance is 0. So what we do is we say, let's say new balance is equal to self dot balance plus amount. Now we check another thing. We have to supply self. Now we check if the new balance is less than 0, that is, it is an invalid transaction. We print out insufficient balance and we return. Otherwise, we say self dot balance is equal to new balance. I think that's it. Yeah. And then we have another function that is we want to do a string representation of our class. So we'll say define str underscore underscore and it takes self and we will return we want to see it as id 0 balance this. Yeah, so we'll say id self dot id and balance self dot balance. So let's see if this works. Python solution 1. So we have plus 100 minus 150 that prints out insufficient balance. Then we do minus 150 and then we see balance is 50 and the string representation is id 0 and balance 50. Does anyone have any confusion? Yeah, the last session we forgot to record, so there's no recording for the previous session. The code is available on GitHub, but we forgot to record the previous session. As far as, yeah, does anyone have any confusion in this one first? I'll tell you about the recordings and GitHub later on. Yeah, Gaurav, go ahead.
From the question, I thought that the string representation would only be the ID and the balance would be a separate function altogether. That's how I wrote it. I didn't understand the question.
So does it work? I mean, is there any issue?
No, I'm trying, but I was just asking.
Okay. No, basically, even if you don't implement this, it's okay. It's just for the user that in case he wants to know what my object is, it gives a string representation, and it is up to the developer to say what is inside it. If we don't implement it, it will show something like this, which is not very user friendly.
Understood.
Okay. So as in case there are any new people here, so we maintain the recordings on YouTube. Unfortunately, I forgot to record the last session. So let me share the link. So here's the link for the playlist. And as for the code, you don't have to take any screenshots or anything. The code will be available on GitHub. So let me share the link for that as well. Yeah, so if anyone is new, check if you can access both of them. So why did we write define done str? So as I said, we need a string representation of our object. The string representation basically means if somebody calls print John, what should happen? So if I do only print John and we remove everything else, let's say we don't print the balance, we should get something like this. That is, my ID is 0, my balance is 50. If we don't implement that, then by default, it will only print out the, wait, if I don't implement this, so by default, it will print out this thing, main account object, basically the object ID, and the user does not understand anything out of this. Is that okay? Yeah. So let's go to question 2. Yeah, one more thing before we move ahead to question 2. Whenever you write a class in Python, you will almost never see it implemented within the file that uses it. That is, we are using account down here and we have defined it up here. Almost all the time you will see that people will define a class in a separate file by the name itself. That is, let's say account.py, and we will paste this thing inside account. Okay. And what we will do here is from account, we import account and everything else remains the same. Okay, so we can even run this again. Yeah, everything works. So this is much cleaner, so that let's say we create more files and they also have to use this class account. So it is better to keep it separate and just utilize it in individual files. So you separate the definition from the execution. Now go ahead to question 2. Update your class account so that it maintains a log of updates. Write a method that prints the mini statement. The mini statement contains the transaction time and amount of 5 latest transactions of the balance. So you have to reuse the account class basically. But this time what we will do is whenever we update, we should also maintain a log that, okay, we have basically updated, we have credited or debited something. So the way we do it in banks basically, I mean, let's say we go to an ATM and we take out 100 rupees, and if we print out a mini statement, we will see our latest transactions, maybe 5 or 10. That is, yesterday you did this, then you did this, and the latest one will be this, and it will print out the balance. So let's say we had John like this, and we went in a for loop and we incremented by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We are basically just crediting, add 1 rupee, 2 rupee, 3 rupees, 4 rupees, and so on up to 1 to 99. At the end, we say get me the mini statement. So what the mini statement will do is it will give me the 5 latest transactions as well as the time when I made the transaction. Okay, so basically when you call this update function, you have to note down two things. Okay, what is the amount that was updated and when was it updated? And you should store all of this somewhere, and you should be able to get this information through get mini statement. And get mini statement does not give me the entire log, it gives me only the 5 latest entries. Okay, any confusion?
How do we implement the date time?
You can do a Google search, just do a Google search how to get current time in Python. And yeah, I think anything would do. Yeah, just search how to get the current time in Python. Anything else? So get mini statement prints this thing. Mini statement, my ID, and the latest 5 transactions along with the time. Year, month, date, exact time. Down, I think this is milliseconds or nanoseconds. And this is the final balance. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, so before we start, does anyone have an idea of how to do it? Forget about efficiency. I mean, any way that you can do it.
Define a function called mini statement in the init constructor.
Okay, so let's forget about mini statement first. Maybe just do the log part first. That is, maintain a log. Let's say I don't want the mini statement, only do this part. That is, when you update, you store this information as well, the time and the amount. You store it somewhere. So can you do that? Don't do the mini statement at the moment. Once you are done with the log part, we'll think about mini statement. Is that okay? Those who are okay, can you please raise your hands? Yeah, so try that out. Once you are done with the log thing, that you can print out the log of a person, then we'll go over to mini statement. Ping in the chat, raise your hands or something when you're done. Can you see the code snippet in the chat? The account class. Can anyone confirm?
Yes, sir, we can see it.
Okay, okay. So in case you haven't written that, you can use this one for your login purposes. Neeraj, do you have a question? I could not hear anything. I think your mic is busted. Okay.
Can we use this self.log in the init? Can I speak about it? I think
Yeah,
the
you can do
self.
anything you like. You can do anything you like. The init function is called the moment we create a class. Never again. When you're done, raise your hand, okay?
Sir, can you show us the problem statement once more?
Can I share what?
Do.
Yeah, I can't hear you. Can you repeat? Okay. Visible? Anyone done? Okay, does anyone know in theory how to do it? Like maybe not in code. Do you know how to do it in theory? You can share it with the rest of the class and then everyone can try that. Yeah, Gaurav, go ahead.
I created a in the constructor. I created a log equal to empty an empty set. Okay, and then what I did
Okay.
is empty list, and then what I did is I in the in the update statement I said statement I made self.log is plus equal to self
Mhm.
balance, and
Yeah.
then in mini statement I did a return of self.log from -5 till the end. I'm trying that,
Okay.
it's not working though.
It's not working. It should work.
I made a mistake somewhere while writing the code, but that is my approach.
Yeah. Just one thing. You don't have to note down the balance in the log. You have to note down the amount that was added. Okay.
Okay.
So self.log plus when you do plus equal to, instead of the balance, you add the amount. You have to note down these two things here. You can store maybe tuples inside list. The first tuple will be the time and the amount. The second tuple will be the time and the amount, and so on. And then you can do that -5 to the end.
I'm uh, I'm struggling with the time part also. I'm not able to get that. So I'm just trying to save the amount.
Oh, so you did not get that on the internet?
I got cursory search gave me something, but it's showing me an error.
So someone else also has his hand raised. Go ahead.
Sir, I basically try to store these values in the dictionary and then try to print it.
So what's the key in your dictionary?
The value we trying to update means we add or matlab, credit or debit.
Okay, so let's say uh, we have John and we add 100 and I have a dictionary. So how will the dictionary change? What's the new dictionary? First we have an NP dictionary. Now the new dictionary looks like.
Eh, um, sorry. First, we store the number of update means what update it is like
Let's say 95, yeah.
before it like 95, 96, 97, and
Mhm.
then with 100 the amount
Mhm.
of the update, and then the time as the value.
Okay, so let's say instead of these 95, my updates were like this. The first update is 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. So what will happen to the dictionary? Initially the dictionary is empty. Now the dictionary becomes what? 1 and
With one as an key, I also store the value which we updated, and then the
no,
time
1
as
is
an
the
value.
value. Yeah, 1 is the value basically. I am adding 1 rupee to my account. Then I am adding 2 rupees to my account.
I
uh,
understood a mistake I'm making. I'll talk to you after that.
Okay.
okay, but I actually counted the values how many times we updated as the dictionary, um, as we
Yeah,
add
let's say I
another.
updated 99 times.
So 99 and the how much I updated the value, the balance in the account, and what time it is, as in the value, and
so something like this. So I'll only have one value in my dictionary.
then
Right. Mhm.
keep updating it until it stores 5 and then replace it by another
Okay,
value.
okay. I think I got it. I think I got it. Wait, wait. So initially my account is empty. I don't have any money, so it's an empty dictionary. Then I add 1 rupee, so basically it's one, and I store my balance as one, and my time, let's say 10 seconds or whatever time it is. Then I add 2 rupees, and now this is my second transaction, so it is two, but my balance is three, right? 1 plus 2 is 3, and I also store the time, let's say 12 seconds. Is it something like that? And then I make the
Yeah,
third transaction, so 3 and so on, right?
yeah, something like that.
Okay. And when you need the last 5 transactions, what do you do?
And
You basically,
after
hmm,
the transaction reaches the limit 5, I keep changing the last one by the new one, and for printing them, uh, I basically arrange in a for loop them, first by the key 2 something, like I basically done 6 transaction and I want to print last 5. So my sixth one transaction was replaced by the first one, and to print them I apply the for loop from -5 to the value which I basically want
okay.
to. The last one I done
So,
the
so
transaction.
in case, so basically you are overriding your log. So let's say I have made 100 transactions, so I only store the last 5 or 6, right? And I don't store rest of the log, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so actually we don't want to do that. We want to store the entire log. Think of it as your bank account. If you ask them, let's say for your transactions from previous year, they have the record. They don't override your record. So what we want is we want to store the entire thing, but when we call mini statement, we only want the final 5, but we don't want to override the previous ones. So okay, this is okay, but I hope you understand what I mean.
then why don't we store it in a file, like every time I made a transaction, then I print in the file and store the last 5 one in the dictionary as the key.
Yes, yeah, that would in fact be a better solution. Yeah, that's a good solution. Yes.
Okay.
Hmm. Does anyone else have anything?
Yes, I got an answer where it only shows the last 5 amounts added, but that's it.
Okay.
I think I did paste the code
Hmm.
in the chat for you. The only difference is
Mhm.
instead of doing strb, I just saved it as a dictionary. Not dictionary, as a list.
Yeah,
The
a list is a better option because I mean we don't want any key value pairs in this case. I mean we have values and there is no basically. I mean a dictionary is not meant for this purpose. That is a key value mapping. The second solution was actually very good, that you have a file and you store 5 in memory and the rest of it you store in a file, because let's say I do transactions for many years. Think about your parents. They have accounts for 10, 20, 30 years. So they must have done hundreds of thousands of transactions. So you don't want to store the entire thing in a list in main memory. It won't even fit. So in fact, for every ID, we can have a log file, and then we can store maybe the latest 5 transactions in memory. A bank may have a problem with that, in the sense that let's say it's an SBI account, and think about the population of India. If we store 5 lines for every person, so even that amounts for a huge amount. So if the number of users are few, so maybe we can store 5 lines per person within his account as his mini statement, is his or her mini statement, and the rest of it in a file. So that is actually an efficient solution. But in case there are many people, maybe we don't want to do that as well. Those 5 lines, and we every time we want to go to the file and take the final file. Does anyone have any question? Storing in a list is okay, but it is inefficient when the data explodes. So let us start. So we have solution 2.py. So from account, we import account, and we also need time. So I think from date time, we just import date time. So we have this thing. So John gets the account and this. So now we have to change this file basically. So what we want is we want to maintain a log. So as by the way, what's your name? The person who suggested the file, storing the log in a file.
Anos.
You read it as Anos.
What?
Is it pronounced Anos?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to store a person's log in a file. So every person should have a unique file. Okay. So what do we have that is unique to every customer? It is an ID. So what we will do is for, let's say, ID 0, we will store 0.log as his log file. For 1, we will store log 1.log as his log file. Okay. So where will we store that? So let's say every person takes in an ID and he wants to know where should I store it. Okay, so let's say a log directory. And then what we will do is self.log file is equal to log dir and f string log dir this and then his ID dot log. So this becomes his log file, the person's log file. And does anyone have any confusion?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Self.log file log directory.
Is everyone following up to this point? Log file. Is everyone following up to this point? Gaurav, you were asking something.
Yes, log directory. Is that something new? Okay.
Yeah, we basically take the input of a folder. That is, where should I store the file? Where will I find the file? My log file. Where will I find it? So we want to supply that, a path basically. So we have a log file. And when we update, we want to basically do this. Let's say we define, let's say we say update log. Okay. And it just takes self. And what it does is, we want to the, yeah. So let's say with open self dot log file, and then we notice we want to append, not write, because we will be making multiple transactions. If we open it in write mode, it will overwrite the file every time. So we want to append it every time. Okay, so we append it and we write as file and file dot write. Now what do we want to write? We want to write the time. So the time will be date time. We did not import date time here. So import date time dot date time dot UTC now. We could also do just now, but the thing is with UTC now, you get the time for basically the GMT time, GMT 0. So it is better to do it so that people in different countries can refer to the same time zone. So we have UTC now, and then we leave a bar, and then we add the amount. Now, how do you know the amount? Do you want to take that as an input? So we have the amount and this, so we write it here. Notice that when you write to a file, you have to tell it to leave a new line at the end. Otherwise, it will append everything in a single line. Okay, so we have a new line, and notice that when we update, we want it to call update log by itself. So we will do it here. So you update the balance, and then you say self dot update log, and you supply the amount. So let's see if this works. So we clear this out, and we have solution 2. And this time we need to tell it to store it, let's say inside a log directory. Let's create a directory named log. Yeah, log. So we haven't done this. So let's comment that out. So we have Python solution 2. And yeah, we have a file. Notice that we have the time and 1, 2, 3, 4, and everything, so on. Does anyone have any confusion? Let us do a few more lines maybe. Yeah, by the way, we'll see another point here. Yeah. Notice that when we run the file again, it does not clear out the previous file. It in fact appends it at this point. So the thing to do is whenever a person creates a new account, that is, if we run the file again, it should clear out the previous log file. Okay. So what we will do is inside the account in the constructor, we will say open my log file in write mode instead of append. When you open something in write mode, it clears out everything inside. Now, when we open it in write mode, we do not want to write anything inside it. So we just say pass. But the fact that we have opened it overrides everything inside. So if we run it again, you will see that the previous values are gone and we only have the new values 1 to 9. If we change it again, let's say we go to 5, it will clear out previous values and only say 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Any confusion? Anyone? Okay, so assuming that you have understood everything, notice that we don't want the user to call update log. Okay, in our function, we only call john.update, and update itself calls update.log. So it is a convention in Python that if there is a function that a class calls itself, but you don't want the user to call it, you place an underscore before it. Now this becomes a private function. This concept is actually more relevant to languages like C and C++. You can still call it in Python. Let's say I did john._update log. It will run. It will in fact run, but it basically tells the user that don't run it like this. In C, if you were to do it for a private function, it won't even run. It says that it is a private function. A user cannot call it by himself. But in Python, there are no such restrictions. So to emulate the concept, what they do is they provide a name in such a way that it discourages the user from calling it outside the function. So if we say underscore log, we will use it here as underscore log. And now it basically signifies that this is a function that a user is not supposed to call outside the function. So it still runs and the log is also updated. Now coming to the point, how do you get the final 5? Let's say I had again 100 and we did this, and now we have up to 99 all the values, and I want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want these 5 values. Does anyone know how to do it? Just take a shot. It's okay if you're wrong. No idea?
Override? No, we can't overwrite right now. I was saying override.
Oh, I just
open a
want to
new
read
file.
these values. Yeah, I just want to read these values. I don't want to change the log file. The log file stays as it is.
Open a
I
new
just want to.
file. I guess open a new file. Open a new file, and write only the last 5 from this to that, and then print only that file.
No, why should we create a new file? I just want to print these 5 values. Basically, when I call mini statement, it prints them to the console here. I will get those 5 values here, and we don't need a file like this. These 5 values will be printed out like this on the screen.
Why don't we just print the last 5 lines
Yeah, that's the point. How? Let's say I give you this
by the
file.
help of for, like we done in last sessions, uh, previous sessions, like we want to uh, change something in the lines of the file, so we use for loop for this,
Mhm,
like for line in file.
mhm,
So to do this, the limit is the last line in the file
mhm,
uh, to the -5 -6 of
mhm.
the
Okay.
files line.
Does anyone see up? I mean, this will work. This will work. So basically, you're saying go to the last line -1 and -2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 and print these out. So this will give me the answer. So does anyone see a problem with this solution? It runs, but let's say I take your account, which is maybe 20 years old, and you have done close to 1 million transactions, and you just did a new transaction, just one more transaction, and now you want a mini statement. So you have 1 million lines and you want to print the last 5. So your solution says read 1 million lines, go to the last line, and then -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So does anyone see a problem here?
During week 4 or 5, there was a concept of putting a pointer in the string, in a string, and then we can move the pointer wherever we want. So we go towards the end. Is that possible?
Yeah, so the problem with no, that is the solution. So what's the problem with this one? With reading everything.
Reading everything is a problem.
Yeah, so basically I'm saying
time consuming.
yeah, it is
Time.
time consuming, yes. And will it fit in memory?
No.
I mean, 100 lines will fit, but think about it. I mean, even if you do transactions, let's say in a month, how many times do you go to a store? How many transactions do we make in a month? Close to maybe easily 1,000, 2,000. Think about 20 years. Your account is 20 years old. How many transactions will you have? You just need a trivial thing. You just need last 5 transactions, but you are reading everything from start to finish. Right? So there are two problems. A, it is time consuming, as someone said, and the other thing is it probably won't fit in memory. So the solution is, as I think Gaurav said, don't read all of this into memory. When you open the file, push the pointer all the way to the end. Okay. You're not reading anything. You are just telling it where to start reading. Okay. You anyway have to go through the entire file, but you haven't brought anything into memory yet. Okay. So what we will tell it is go all the way to the end of the file and now go 5 lines back. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And when you go 5 lines back, now read the rest of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the way to do it is actually non-trivial. I don't think Python has anything, I mean, a default function to do it. That is to get the last n lines from a file. So I think let's do problem 3 before we address this one, in case we have time. I mean, I want to do that, but maybe after problem 3. So for the time being, implement it as reading all the entire file and just printing the last file. So can you do that? Let me share this much with you. And now I want you to implement another statement, basically this one, def get mini, maybe just print mini statement. Yeah, you have to implement this. Okay. Let me share this with you. Okay, so I've shared the code in the chat. You need to implement that method, mini statement.
I didn't see the. Wait, let me check.
Hmm?
Yeah, I don't know if you have, because I can't see the.
Yeah, I unshared my screen. I'm saying, do you see it in your chat?
No, I don't see it in the chat. That's the problem.
You don't see it in the chat. Wait, just a second. Now, I think there are 2 of them now.
Yes, now I got it.
There are 2 files now. Anyone done? Mini statement. You just have to read all the lines and print the last 5. Done? Yeah, Gaurav, do you have a folder by the name log actually? It's looking for a folder named log. Do you have a folder log? Yeah, that's fine. Anyone done now? Okay, so Neeraj, did it work?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's try it ourselves. So is the screen visible? Visible? Can anyone confirm?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Yes, sir, visible.
Okay, so we have get mini statement. And what do we take? We only take cell. So what do? We say, let's say just print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mini statement ID is ID and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we say uh, mm, transactions maybe. Transactions is equal to get last 5. Or maybe just read last n lines. Let's make it general. So we have read last n lines and we supply it in the log file, self.log file. So it will give us the last 5 transactions. And then what we do is for, let's say for I in transactions, just print I, and I think we return. So now we have to implement this thing, read last n lines. So we can do it within this function or we can do it in a separate file. Now, because this is a general function, let's do it in a separate file. One way to do it is the way you people did it. So let's do it that way. So instead of this, we can just do transactions is equal to with open self.log file. We read and we read it as file. We say transactions is file dot read lines, and what we need is yeah, we have everything. We only need -5 onwards. So -5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, that should be it. Yes. I think we may run into one problem, that is we have an extra line here. So let's see. So we need the 5 values, and then what we will do it for I in transactions, we'll print I dot strip basically, because we don't want the new lines there. So let's try. Wait, do we have it here? Yeah, we have it. So if we run it here, we get 95, 96, 97, 90, 90. Yeah, it works. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So we start from 5, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, basically everything afterwards. Yeah. So if we check, are we printing the extra line as well? For I comma t in numerate, let's print I comma t dot strip, and yeah, we don't print the extra line. Okay, because yeah, okay. So no confusions here, right? Simply read everything, get the final file. Okay, so let's do it this way. That is, we want to go to the end of the file and then iterate back five lines before. Okay, so I've written the pseudocode for this. First try to understand this part, then we will write it in code. Okay, so we want to go to the last character. So if we have a log file here, we want to go to the last character in the file. So start here, go to the end of the file. Now, how do we know the end of the file? In Python, we have something called seek.end. It when you call file.seek, you have to tell it two things. Okay, where to start, that is see the second argument, and then it tells it seek in which direction and how much. So if I said 1, it would say okay, start at this point and then go one step forward. Okay, we're telling it to go one step backwards. So it will reach this point, seek.end, and then go one step backward. In fact, it may start here because there is actually a new line character here. If we print the characters, it will be 9, 9, new line, and then nothing. Okay, so it will be here, and then it will go one step backwards. So go to the last character, then we enter an infinite loop. Okay, so what do? We check the character, the current character, and see if it is a new line character. Okay, so our goal is to count 5 new line characters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and when we have counted 5 new line characters, we will say okay, I am at the 5th last line. Okay, any confusions up to this point? There is a problem with the ID. I think it should be self. Yeah, self.id. I think I may have missed that. Yeah, self.id. So do you understand the logic up to this point? Go to the last line, and because we want to print 5 lines, we will go 5 new line characters back. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So how do we do that? Read one character at a time. If it is not a new line character, that is, we read 9. 9 is not, when we read a character, by the way, it does two things. It reads it and it also seeks one character forward. Okay, so we read the character 9 and we go one step in the right direction. If it is not that, we want to go 2 steps back, 1 and 2. Okay, correct. Go to the end, read one character. If it is not a new line character, go 2 steps back. Then again, we repeat the same thing. Read the character. When you read it, your cursor also moves forward. If it is not a new line character, go 2 steps back. This will continue till you reach this beginning of your line, and then you will see a new line character. Okay. Now, if you see a new line character, you want to maintain a counter. How many new line characters have I seen? So we maintain a counter and we increment that. Okay, I have seen one new line character, and we go on. Now what we do is we check, have I seen n+1 new line characters? If I have, break out of the infinite loop. Now why are we doing n+1 infinite character, basically n+1 new line characters? Because we have an extra line here. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. if we count up, we want to reach this point, right? So at 94 we should stop. So one new line, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we have one extra. That is why we are comparing with n+1 rather than n. Okay. So does anyone have any confusion with this pseudocode? Should I repeat? Clear? Okay, so let's do it in code. So we will define a function, define read last n lines. It will take the file path. Okay. And what do we do now? The first thing is with open file path. We don't read it as such, we read it in binary mode. Okay. Seek basically works in binary. That is, do I move 1 byte forward or 1 byte backward? So R is read mode, RB is read in binary mode. So it will read everything in binary. So we read it in binary mode, and what do we do then? As file. Let's put all of this inside a function. So we start with a try except clause. So what try except does is, in case let's say our file is short or something and we hit an error, so it will say, okay, just start at the beginning of your file.seek 0. Okay, so this is just a safety clause. So what do we do inside the try clause? Let's say everything goes according to plan. We go to the end of the file, that is os dot, let's import os. So should be inside. Yeah. So we open this, we have try, and then we go to the end of the file, and then we go one step back. So one character back. Enter an infinite loop. So let's say while true. Now what do we do in while true? We want to read one character. So we say file dot read one, and this is our character char. Okay. So we want to check if it is a new line character. So we will say if char is equal to new line. Notice that because we are reading in binary, we need to do this. This basically tells that this string is also in binary, so that we compare two binary values. So if char is not equal to, in fact, yeah. If it is not equal to a binary character, we want to go 2 steps back. So we will do it like this. Go 2 steps back. Otherwise, else, if it is a new line character, we increment a counter. So let's maintain a counter. So let's say new lines C is equal to 0 by default. So we will say new line C plus equal to 1. I have seen one new line character now. Now we check if new line scene is equal to, now is equal to what? We need to take that n as input. So n plus 1. If it is equal to that, we break out. If equal, break. So let's write it here. We break out of this infinite loop. Otherwise, else we again go 2 characters back. I think there is a little bit of a redundancy here. Let's remove this thing. I think this is okay. Yeah. So we, at this point, basically, after we have broken out of the while loop, we are at the position where we want to read the rest of the file. So we want to do it here under the except clause. So what we do is lines is equal to file dot read lines. Notice that now it will read everything after the pointer. Okay, read lines will say read all the lines after the current pointer. So I have this. Now we will say lines is equal to line dot let's strip it, basically remove any new line characters at the end. And we also want to I believe let's decode it first because it is in binary. We want to get it into the normal string fashion. So decode and then strip for line in lines, and we return lines. I think this should work. Any confusion? Okay, so let's try it out. So in our account thing, it's time to be here. So let's import read last line from. So we have this, and what we do is instead of doing this, we say transactions is equal to read last n lines, and we give it self dot top file and 5. So this will give us the transactions as a list, and everything else is the same. So let's see if this works. Same thing. Okay, but this will work with no matter how big our file is. We will not run into any memory issues. Understood? Those who get it, please raise your hand. Okay, so let me share these files with you. Just run them on your side, okay? In fact, let me show you another thing. Remember we used to do that dunder main is equal to dunder this. By the way, this is known as dunder basically. Double underscore is in short form known as dunder. So we used to do this if underscore main is equal to this thing, right? So what this does is when I'm importing a file, let's say read underscore last lines, I am importing it here in solution in account, in fact, yeah. So I'm importing it here. So this expects that there is no executable part in that file. Okay, so I will import everything and I will use it here. Now let's say I write something here. Let's say I do this, that is read last lines, and I give it this file log 0.log, and I give it 3. Okay, and if I try to run this, this should run. Yeah, this wait, read last did not print. Yeah, so we got these 3. Now, if I import it as such, this will throw an error because when you import something, you don't expect anything to run. So what we do is we use this thing here. If underscore name is equal to underscore main. What this tells us is when something is run as the main file, that is when I run Python, this thing, read last lines.py against Python, the underscore name value stores main inside it. But when I run account.py, read last lines won't save underscore name inside main. So this part won't be executed. So do you now understand why we always use this? In that case, we just used it to separate the definition from the execution. But when you have multiple files, this is how you use underscore name. This will only be executed from the file that was run in the terminal. Okay. So if I run account here, these lines won't execute. Any confusion?
Let me repeat what you said because maybe then I don't know if I understood. If because you wrote this exact method in this exact let's say file, it will not execute. But if you open this in another, if you import this in another, let's say code, and then you run the code automatically, then this would occur.
Yeah, let me actually print this. Let's say we print this. Print underscore name. Okay, this will obviously be main in this case, but we do the same thing here as well. That is, we say print read underscore lines underscore name. Okay, let's not do anything else. Let's exit there and there. In this case as well, let us exit here. So if I run account.py, notice that it says read last lines, not this. Now, if we run read last lines, it says main. So do you see the difference? When you run a file, its own name becomes main. Basically, it's sort of a master now, a main file, and everything else runs inside it. But when someone else calls it, its underscore name does not contain main inside it. So we tell it execute this part only when you are the master, when you are the main function, when you were run through the terminal. Is that clear?
Getting there, getting there.
Okay. So you can basically use this. Let's say you want to debug your code and you want to run this particular function, but this function is utilized it's in a much bigger file and you don't want to go there. So what you can do is write part of your code here, but write it inside this so that other people don't get affected when they import your code. Okay. So let's remove this part. I think someone had a question. Size and important model. Once again, show the output. Oh, Alice, which output? So we don't want this part. Okay, everything is okay. This Python solution 1.5. Oh yeah. So now because we have changed that, we also need to change solution 1. We now expect the log direct. Log directory is log. So solution 1 runs. Solution 2 also runs. Yeah. So let's go to problem 3. We have 20 minutes. Let me share these two with you. I think I'll upload them to GitHub and you can access them there. Wait, give me a few minutes, okay? Can you check if you can access week 7? It has all the files up to this point. Question 3 would need these files. So maybe download the entire folder. Okay, so if you're done with that, try problem 3. Problem 3 extends the accounts to a bank. So now we have a bank. In a bank, many people can open accounts. So every account would in itself be a class account. Okay, so you have a bank which is a class. It organizes smaller classes, basically accounts. So a person supplies his ID and the bank opens an account on his ID. Later on, the person can credit his account. So how does he do that? He goes to the bank and says, okay, my ID is 0 and I am crediting by 100. And because this is a bank and there are multiple people, now they can do transactions among themselves. So we say a bank has to do a transaction. Who is the sender? Who is the receiver? And what is the amount being sent? Notice that inside this, you need to make those checks. That is, does the sender have enough balance to send over the money? So this will be another function. So opening an account, crediting the balance, debiting the balance, and transactions. Again, you can basically print out a string version of your class and get the mini statement of individual people. So notice that you will be reusing a lot of the code from account. Okay. For example, to get the mini statement, don't write a new mini statement function. You can reuse a person. Let's say I come to you and I say my name is ID 0. You go to my class and call my mini statement function. Don't create a new mini statement function. So try to do this part.
So you want us to add debit and credit between two people in an account. That's what.
I mean, this is similar to update. I just gave them two different names. You can write a same function, bank.update, and then if it's a positive value, you raise. If it's a negative value, you lower down the value, lower down the balance. You can write the same functions, update. I just broke it down into two separate functions, credit and debit. This is a separate function, transaction, because this involves two people. You can use credit and debit inside transactions. That is, raise one value, lower the other value. Any progress? Is anyone halfway through? Okay, let me do it then. So what we want to do is we need a class named bank. Okay, let's create a separate file. We will call it bank.py. What we do is from account, import account as we need it. So class bank. By the way, you can see my screen, right? And you can hear me.
Yes, yes.
So we have the constructor in the bank. Let's leave it as is for the time being. Now what we want to do is open an account. So define open account. It will take in self and it will take in an ID. And we will do something about it later. Then we have define credit. Again, self takes an ID, it takes an amount. We will do this later. Similarly, we will have debit. And what do we have? We have transaction. Transaction takes in sender receiver amount. So we need sender ID, receiver ID, and the amount. And then we have mini statement. Takes self and it takes the ID, the person whose statement we need. Anything else, then we need a string representation. Define underscore string. It only takes self and we will do something about this later. Okay. So the first thing is to open an account. So to open an account, what we will do is we will maintain a list of accounts. Accounts is in fact a dictionary. Let's maintain a dictionary where the key will be the ID. Key will be the ID and the value will be the class, the object, the account object. So we will be let's say self.accounts, my ID, and I will create an account like this. Now, what does it take? It takes an ID, which in this case is ID, and it takes a log directory, which let us take that as input as well. That is what is my log directory. Be consistent. What did we write here? In account, we wrote log file. We write log dir somewhere, log underscore dir. So let's write log underscore dir here as well. So log underscore dir is equal to log underscore dir. Okay. So we supply self dot log dir. So in this way, we create an account. Okay. So now we go to crediting. So how do we do that? We just do self dot accounts and ID. So this gets me the account. Now what do? I call the update function of that account. And remember, we have uh, the account class and it has its own update function. So we don't need to do anything new. We call this thing. Basically, when I do self.accounts, it gives me an object account and now I can call its methods. So I will call update, and what does update take? It just takes in the amount. So we supply amount. There is no need for any check as it's a credit. Okay, we are doing an addition. Now the second case is a debit. So here we need to check the new balance. Okay, so new balance is equal to, we need to get this part first. So this thing dot balance, and we have to add, no, we have to subtract our amount in this case. So if new balance is less than 0, we print insufficient balance and we return. Otherwise, we can just do self dot accounts my ID, and I can say update, and I will supply minus amount. This is debit. Okay, so this is done, this is done, this is done. Okay, so now we are at transactions. In a transaction, we need to check sender's balance. Check sender's balance. If he has sufficient balance, we debit on one side, we credit on the other side. Okay, so new balance is equal to self dot accounts the sender ID. Now I have the sender account, so I get his balance and I subtract the amount that I want to send. Now, if new balance is less than 0, again we print insufficient balance and we return. Okay. And if that is not the case, what we do is self dot, no, not self dot. We have to do self account sender, this one, and we say debit by amount, and on the receiver side we credit by the amount. Yeah, so this is done. Notice that when we do all of these transactions, since we are using update, this update function, and inside the account class, the update function is automatically logging everything, right? So we don't have to log anything explicitly because we did that in account. It is automatically maintaining a log by itself. This is the power of basically object-oriented programming, that you build slowly into more powerful structures. So we have a transaction, we do a check. If it passes the check, we simply debit on one side, credit on the other side, and we return. So now we have
In the in the place of sender's ID here, receivers.
yeah, thank you. Thanks. So now we have get mini statement. So this is easy. We already have a function of mini statement. So we do self dot accounts. What is my ID? Now I have the account and I call get mini statement.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir. Can you see the chat box on, sir? Yeah, my name is Kaushik.
This is my first live session. I have so many doubts. I know only Madhavan sir lectures in YouTube and PDF material 8 from the GitHub link should now. Madhav is basically the other TA, right? He holds his lectures on Tuesday.
No, sir, IIT Madras YouTube already recorded.
So the lecture. Okay. So I thought it was the other TA. I mean, if you have the practical knowledge, it's up to you. I mean, I can't say.
Sir,
I think we in our live sessions we're more focused towards the practical aspects of Python. That is because in your lectures we're theory based. That is how to do data structures and all. So here we went into the nuances of Python. So how do you do this efficiently? How do you do these particular things? So if you were able to do the assignments, I mean, I can't comment otherwise. If you have the time, you can maybe just go over the GitHub code. Just, I mean,
okay,
go to the video lectures. It has the timestamps, so go over the problem statement, think over it. Can you maybe code it up yourself? Once you're done with that, you can go to the GitHub link and just quickly parse through the solution.
Previous live sessions, I didn't attend anything, sir. And while searching inside, something Aditya sir's lectures only I found. Is it that, or you only taking every week?
No, there's two of us. I take every Sundays. He takes it on Tuesdays. So, I mean, we are not syncing up together. So he teaches whatever he prefers. I teach whatever I prefer.
Okay,
so I mean, it's up to you. It's up to you to choose which one you prefer.
okay, this is week 8, so this is advanced, so I'm just
No,
understanding
this is week
partially.
7. This is week 7.
Okay, sir, whatever, but I'm pursuing in college, so I didn't focus much till last 1 or 2 months. But I know already this Python and OOPS DSC something.
Okay.
So is it enough for me? What to do in next 2 weeks, sir?
I mean, I can't comment about that, right? I mean, I don't know your skills. I mean, only you can tell whether you can appear in the exams and score.
I have to
Okay.
start from basics. It's good. Mm,
I mean, you
like
can gauge, you can basically
for pass.
gauge, you can gauge it yourself. I mean, by attempting the questions, the assignments or the quizzes. If you're able to do that, you're able to do that. That's it. So moving on, yeah. So we were left with the string representation. So we need to return a string. So what do we return? We
Sir,
want to return,
sir, excuse.
yeah, anything else?
Sir, in exam pattern, MCQs of programming also, sir, both equally questions.
No, I'm not aware. I'm not aware of the exam pattern. Yeah, I'm not involved in that.
Okay, because 24th is exam, so before that, I have to prepare.
Oh. So we, in a string representation, what we want is how many members does the bank have? How many people have opened accounts in the bank? So it's basically just the length of self.accounts. Self.accounts, this is it. Now, how much cash does the bank have? So this is basically the sum of everyone's balance, right? So how do we do this? In fact, yeah, think about it. We can either store it here or we can do it on the spot. Should we do it on the spot or should we store this here? Sell.cash. Both will do.
On the
But the
spot.
problem is then,
You see, it's you're asking the question: is it like an either or is you have to weigh the pros and cons?
I mean, it just came to my mind. That is, should we do it here or here? If we do it here, then we have to update it every time we do credit, every time we do debit. So I think maybe we should do it on the spot. Just take everyone's balance, sum it rather than. I mean, think about it. People do tens of transactions every day. How many times would someone ask the bank how much cash do you have? So maybe just sum it over here. Yeah. So we will sum over a list. Now, what does the list contain? The list contains everyone's balance. So we will say, let's say account for account in self.accounts. So now we have the account. What do we need? For everyone's account, we are taking his balance. So we have acc.balance. I think this is okay, right? Yeah, cash, sum. So let's now use this function inside solution 3. So in solution 3, we will use this thing. Solution 3, yeah, this from bank, we import bank, and notice that bank itself imports account, right? So notice that we're building up. So now we have a bank. We open 2 accounts. The first one deposits 100 rupees. Then he sends 10 rupees over to basically user 1. Then we print how much cash does the bank have, how many members does it have. Then the user 0 says, okay, I want my mini statement. And this guy says, I also want my mini statement. So let's see. We have solutions, Python, solution 3. Bank is missing log dir. So log dir is log. Oh yeah. So basically we did not have credit and debit in our case, we had update. Where did I do that? Yeah, here. So instead of this, we can just use maybe self dot debit, and we say debit the sender, that is the ID is the sender ID. and the amount is amount. And similarly, here we can credit the receiver. We credit the receiver by that amount, and we don't need anything else.
Sir, instead of this, why don't we just uh, add the minus sign ahead of the amount by
I
the
mean, for
using
update.
of for the update?
Yeah, it's our own choice. Yeah, we can create one function and say update, and then we don't need credit and debit. Personal choice.
Okay.
For example, in the account thing, we did that. We had only one function update. In this case, we are using two functions, debit and credit. And personal choice, it's completely up to you.
I have
So,
one question actually. Let's say we are involving this with two bank accounts, right? ID1,
uh-huh.
ID2.
Yeah.
So imagine if we are doing the credit and debit from ID1 to ID2, but then
Mhm.
ID1 does not have enough balance. Then how would we make
Okay.
sure that the entire transaction goes back to not possible?
Yeah, we did that here, right? Inside the transaction, we said if new balance is less than zero, return. We never do a debit and a credit. We check first.
Okay. Okay, understood.
Yeah, so I think we have done something wrong here. So self.accounts is it's a dictionary, it's not a list. So we say values. So the values are individual objects. Every object has an attribute balance. We get a list of balance and we just sum that. So in fact, why don't we use a generator? Yes, so it works. So let's go over it line by line. So what happens is we open a bank and we tell it that your log directory is this one. We open two accounts, ID0 and ID1. And then ID0 comes to the bank and he deposits 100 rupees. Okay. Then he makes a transaction. He sends 10 rupees to receiver one. Notice that everything is being logged implicitly because we did it in the account thing. Okay. Then we print the bank. What does printing the bank do? It says, okay, I have two members and I have 100 cash. 90 of which is with one person, 10 of which is with the other person. Then we do get mini statement of user zero. So it prints the mini statement of user zero. We did not have to redo it because the account already has it. And then this guy comes up and he says that, okay, I want to debit 10 rupees. He only had 10 rupees, so he debits that. So 10 and minus 10. And now the bank has 90 rupees. It initially had 100 because one of the persons cashed out. Okay. Is that clear? Let's in fact go over it line by line. Notice that it will actually start debugging. So we get to the bank. What happens is it creates an empty dictionary and it says, okay, self.log directory is log directory. And we go back. Now we say open an account. What happens at this point is it comes here and inside the dictionary, it saves the key as ID and it saves an object. Okay, so we go back. Where did we run this? No such file log.0. I mean, we just ran it. We have, oh, I know what happened. Word syntax. Use IntelliSense. What did we do? What did we do? It's week 7. Let me go to solutions, just my code. It should run. Yeah, I think it's something with the debugger on Windows. On Linux this works, but anyways. So let's do it manually. So we get to open account and then we go here. Inside open account, we call this basically class. When we call the class, it goes into the account class and its constructor is called. So it sets the ID, sets the balance, opens the log file, basically clears up the log file, because if we had done it in solution 1 and solution 2, it will clear it out using the right thing. And now we have a fresh basically page. So when we are done with this part, then the second guy also comes up and does the same thing. Then we do credit. What does credit do? Credit comes here, it says self.account and update. Now one line thing. In update, it goes back to the account file and it calls its update function, and which does this self.update plus amount. Again, you could have split this into two, credit and debit. So we go back, we do credit. Now we come to transactions. Who is the sender? Who is the receiver? How much are we sending? So when we go to transactions, we see this is the temporary variable, that is new balance. If the new balance is less than 0, we do not go ahead with the transaction and we return. Otherwise, we do this the debit and the credit, and then we just print the string representation of the bank and get mini statements of individuals, and we exit the code. Does anyone have any questions? By the way, this may be helpful to you. Let's say you have this thing and you want to go to its definition. What you do is right click, go to the definition. It will take you here where it was defined. From read last n lines, import read last n lines. This file shows file not found. Yeah, so these two files should be in the same folder. Maybe you have kept them in different folders. So what this does is, let's say we have solution or maybe bank account calls it, right? Yeah. So what it does is it searches the current folder basically for a file named read last n lines. So if it is in the same folder, read last n lines, it will look for this thing, read last n lines. Okay. By the way, it also makes a difference. Where do you run the file? That is, let's say in my terminal, I am in week 7. So if I do Python solutions and solution 3, this will throw an error. It says, I don't know where log0 log is, because we said that you will find log here. But because we're running in week 7 does not have anyone named log here. Okay. Notice this. We have VS Code, we have problems, we have solutions. We need to execute it inside the solutions folder. Okay. So when you give your code to someone else, you need to tell him where should I run the code from. Okay, should you run it from the home directory, that is this part? Should you should you change directly to the solutions and then execute your code? This is actually important. Many people mistake this because you don't tell the user where should you run the code and then he runs it and it says file not found, file not found. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, okay, so let's end it here. Let's meet next week. Bye, guys.
Thank you.